Are we ready? Good evening and thanks for joining me. My name is Megan and I'm your Cruise and Travel Director. Welcome to EXC Talks. This is Breaking the Ice Ceiling. And this is Alaska. It's beautiful and it's extreme. Every day, thousands of Alaskans go to work in extraordinary conditions. They risk life and limb just to do their jobs. They are ship captains, bush pilots, and fishermen. It's difficult work and it's dangerous work. And today, I'm going to tell you that the image you have of the people that I'm describing, it's probably wrong. Shipping, fishing, flying, those are all jobs generally done by men, especially in extreme conditions, especially in Alaska. But today, I'm going to tell you three stories about three women who stand in the face of the male-dominated industries they work in, and they don't just thrive, they define what it means to be Alaskan. Three stories about community, family, and tradition, and the amazing women who risk it all to live up to those ideals. We start in the Bering Sea. Okay, so here's the scene. It's January 10th, 2012, and two ships are desperate to get to shore. But in front of them, behind them, and to the sides of them is ice. At the helm of the biggest ship is Captain Beverly Havlick, and she's on a mission to save a town. It's negative 19 degrees outside. The wind is howling, the seas are frozen solid, and time is not on her side. If Captain Havlick can't get to port, the more than 3,000 people that live in Nome, Alaska won't survive the winter. Nome is a tiny town, way up in mainland Alaska, right on the Bering Sea, just outside the Arctic Circle. It's so far north, we don't go there very often. There's one road out of town, and that road just heads north into the icy cold. Nome is so isolated that all the fuel they need for the winter, all the fuel to heat their homes, cook their food, drive their cars, it all has to be delivered by ship in the fall before the Bering Sea is covered in ice. But a storm forced the winter delivery to be cancelled. And by the time the storm cleared, it was too late. And now, Nome is freezing to death. No one had delivered fuel through sea ice in the entire history of Alaska. But a tiny Russian oil tanker called the Renda was willing to try, and Captain Havlick's icebreaker would have to keep her safe. Ice is dangerous for any ship, but for a small tanker, it can be disastrous. Ice that's only 6 inches thick can destroy her propellers, damage her rudder, or cement her in place. But the ice on the Bering Sea was already almost 5 feet thick in places. And there was another danger. I'm going to let Captain Havlick explain.
Ice conditions can get dangerous very quickly because it's also a function of what are the weather conditions that are influencing the ice. So if there's heavy wind pressing on the ice, like hundreds of miles out at the outer ice edge, it's like compacting a snowball. The ice gets so tight around the hulls of the ships. And without a properly constructed vessel that's ice capable or ice durable, you could crush a ship with the ice around it, just like it's a tin can.
Captain Havlick's job is to break up the ice and create a safe path for the Renda to travel in. But one mistake, and the Renda could end up spilling 1.3 million gallons of oil into the Bering Sea. And nothing about this is easy. The ice moves, it shifts, as though it's trying to keep the ships away from shore, as though the ice is trying to choke the life out of Nome. As soon as the Healy clears a channel, the ice closes in from behind, squeezing the trailing Renda. When it's bad, the ships crawl along at a snail's pace. But when it's really bad, they lose ground, drifting further from shore. By January 10th, Captain Havlick had been on the mission for weeks, and things did not look promising.
There were several terrifying moments. There were a couple of close calls. I would call the admiral and I asked him, what if we can't do this? And he said, you're on scene. You're the operational commander on scene. If this doesn't feel safe to you, if this is not right, it's up to you. You pull the plug and we're done. We just bit our lip and said, we're going to do this until obviously we cannot.
There were near misses, moments where the ships almost collided. There were moments when the wind-packed ice was too thick to pass and they contemplated turning around and leaving the render in the ice for the winter. At times it felt like the whole earth was holding its breath. A Twitter account was set up, giving minute-by-minute details of the painfully slow progress, and their messages were not pretty. Tough sledding towards Nome. Little progress, still 100 miles away. The wind, current, and ice pressure remain a constant challenge. And it wasn't just the environment working against them. The Render is a Russian ship being escorted by a US military vessel, and the Russian ship also had a Russian crew. At times, they were operating in windy ice with only 60 yards of water between them. And to make matters even worse, the captain of the Render wouldn't talk to Captain Havlik directly because she's a woman.
The other captain, he was a graduate of the Vladivostok Maritime Academy, and at the time he was 28 years old, so he was about half my age. He hadn't had a lot of experience working with women and didn't necessarily want to. He would only talk through his interpreter to talk to me, which was necessary because of our language barrier. But he didn't want to hear my voice on the radio. It had to be the voice of another man. So I put one of our crew members with an extra deep voice on our radio so that we could have conversations back and forth. I would not tell you it's the first time in my career that I ever encountered someone like him. When I first came in the Coast Guard, which was in 1987, there still weren't a lot of women in the Coast Guard, which surprised me. And there was some resistance, a strong resistance from some of my leaders that didn't necessarily want me there with them. But I don't like to be told no. Maybe that's a character flaw or a personality flaw or something like that, but until I physically can't do something, I have it in my head that it's going to get done. So I couldn't believe this is really how, at this point in my career, this is how I have to work with this guy, but we got to get the job done, so that's what it takes, and we can all go home. Let's just do this and get it over with.
The situation began to look hopeless. Even the New York Times reported it is unclear whether she, the Render, will ever arrive. But Captain Beverly Havlik was not going to give up. Here's what she said to NPR at the time.
Is there any chance, Captain Havlik, that you will not be able to make it to Nome with this fuel supply coming behind you?
I don't want to speculate on that. We're making steady progress forward. That's going to be my message.
Slow and steady, day by day, they inched closer and closer, fighting their way towards shore. And then something amazing happened. They found a rhythm. Like two ballet dancers learning a difficult choreography, they began to move as one. Havlik's ship would leap ahead, breaking the ice, and the Render would slide in behind, over and over again, each one playing their role perfectly. A Marine pilot who watched it happen said, "It was like watching poetry that nobody will ever see." And on January 13th, the citizens of Nome turned their eyes to the horizon and saw hope. Finally, after 3 weeks and 350 miles of relentless ice, the ships reached Nome. The mission was a success. The town of Nome was safe. They would survive the winter. And Captain Havlik had successfully navigated the dangerous waters of ice and of international relations. And to celebrate, the people of Nome did what anybody would do. They baked cookies. Because what else do you want after a grueling battle with the elements? Fresh, baked cookies. But here's the amazing part. When we asked her why she risked everything to try to save this town, here's what Captain Havlik said.
Nome citizens had like a real nice reception for us, and they brought in pizzas and salads, and they treated us to some traditional dance. And I had grown up in a small town, a small community in Iowa, And it takes a community spirit, togetherness to get a lot of accomplished. And clearly Nome had that spirit, the energy. You band together, you get a job done, and that's what the folks in Nome did. I mean, the citizens came out and were hauling hose lengths across the ice to connect together to offload all that fuel that was on the tanker. They came out to the ship to take pictures and shake hands and talk to the crew members, and I mean, they couldn't have been more welcoming. It was just really neat.
Despite having lived through a grueling, cruel couple of weeks, escorting what sounds like an unpleasant person across the dangerous ice, Captain Havlick still rose above it all. And the thing that drove her was a community spirit. The community spirit, that sense of being in it together, that's what's so incredible about this state. There are a lot of towns like Nome in Alaska that rely on community support. Towns that are completely cut off from the rest of the world, except by sea, or more frequently, by the subject of our next story, the sky. And that's a wrap. Thank you. Thank you.
The sky and the landscape in Alaska are